In our starting point photography segment tonight, I was teaching a class a couple weeks ago, and in a beginner DSLR class. I love teaching these classes; so much fun. And one of the ladies was asking about a location that Melissa and I have been to, Cliff Gilker. It's a lovely little park here, and by the way, people here in the Sunshine Coast have different versions of parks. I think a park as a lovely grassy area with a tree, maybe a squirrel over there, and you walk through the bucolic green, you look at some flowers. Your parks are hiking areas. Up and down, over hill and dale, and there's waterfalls, and there's stumps, and there's just uphills and downhills.
Bears.
And possibly bears.
Chasing the squirrels.
So Cliff Gilker Park is I don't know. I don't have that many parks. I don't know that many parks around here. But it's a lovely park. I like walking Cliff Gilker. There's several waterfalls there that are fun to take. What's the other park that you, me, and Damon went to with that big waterfall?
You, me, and Damon.
Where Damon flew the drone and took the pictures.
Not smugglers.
No.
I'm so sorry. Which waterfall did
Never
we go
mind.
to? Never mind. Another beautiful waterfall.
beautiful.
Oh, I know. Down that. Yeah. Never mind.
Okay.
Yes, I know where you mean.
So this lady was talking about walking through Cliff Gilker Park and seeing that spot where you and I saw the rocks. People had
Cairns.
Cairns had piled a bunch of rocks onto some bigger boulders, and apparently she saw one of these rock formations, and it wasn't in a cave, but it was in a dark. There was a dark area behind it, and the sun was hitting the rocks in just the right way. And she said the problem she was having was that when she took a picture of the rocks, it was either blown out, the rocks part, and the dark part in the background was well lit, or the reverse, that the rocks were well lit, but it was just black in the background. You couldn't see any of the leaves or the trees or the branches in the background. And the problem she's having is something that's a little bit more advanced than beginner, but not quite intermediate, somewhere in the middle. As I always tell students, remember, you're always taking pictures of light. Light is the most important thing in your photography. You don't take pictures of the dark. You take pictures of light. So you have to see the light, to see the way light works with things. Your camera sees a scene, and your camera doesn't know what you're shooting. It doesn't know it's a person or a rock or a tree. All it sees is light. And your camera wants to make everything average at 18%. So if you get yourself set on auto mode, your camera says, okay, I want this whole scene to be what's called 18% gray. So it'll tend to, if it sees a really bright spot, it has to balance it up by making a dark spot really dark. And vice versa. If there's a dark spot, it makes the bright spot really bright. So that's why when there's someone with the sun over their shoulder and you're shooting in their face, the sun is going to be a big white blob and they're going to be a dark blob because the camera's trying to make everything 18% gray. So you have to learn how to get off auto mode and shoot for the light. Now, one of the things that she could have done is just say, the hell with the background. What's important in my picture is these cairns in the foreground, and gotten in really close and taken a picture of the cairns, ignored the background. Mm-hmm. If she had shot with a very high or low aperture.
To bring in more light or less? To bring in more light?
To focus on just this one thing.
Oh, well, it would be less of an f-stop because she's only taking a photograph of that one thing.
So what should her f-stop number be? A high number or a low number?
A low number.
Correct. As I tell folks, use the aperture that's closest to the number of things that you want in focus. So if it's one object, even though it's a bunch of rocks, it's one object, get your aperture down probably 3.5, 4.5. Get it down to the lowest number you can. If you're taking a picture of a bunch of people, make your aperture as close to the number of people, f8, f11, whatever it might be. So what she could have done is getting really, really close, shoot at a very low aperture number so that the background would be blurry and it wouldn't matter if there was a whole lot of light there. The other thing she could have done is our iPhones do this automatically. I'm not saying her iPhone could have gotten this shot, but there's this aspect of photography called high dynamic range. Your iPhone, if you've got it set that way, does it automatically. HDR. And what it does is when you take a picture with your iPhone actually takes 3 pictures simultaneously. What your iPhone will do is it will first expose for the bright spot, the highlight it's called. So it'll make the highlight perfectly exposed, or as perfectly exposed as the iPhone can get. But it'll make the mid-range light and the dark stuff darker. Then it will take a photo of the mid-range stuff. And it'll make the bright spot too bright and the dark spot too dark, but the mid bit will be perfectly exposed. Then it'll take a third photo. It'll make the dark bit perfectly exposed, but everything else won't be. And then it merges those 3 photos together quickly, milliseconds. You don't even notice it's happening, but it's happening in the background. So maybe her iPhone could have helped her solve this problem. Unlikely. The other thing she could have done is put her camera on a tripod and done her own HDR stuff. So what you do is you take your own 3 pictures and you expose for the bright area of light, you expose for the dark area of light, and you expose for the mid area of light. Take 3 pictures, 1 for each of those. Then in software, in Lightroom or Photoshop or any number of other bits of software, fold those together, layer them on top of each other, and you should get a perfectly well exposed photo. As MacMan says, you can get a polarizer filter or a neutral density filter, and all that is just another piece of glass that goes in front of your camera lens. A polarizer filter, and they're think of them as sunglasses for your camera lens. So it's a darkened piece of glass that screws onto the outside of your lens, and it's like a sunglass. A polarizer allows you to turn the sunglass. A regular ND filter is just a piece of dark sunglass type stuff over top of your lens. A polarizer can turn, and half of it will be sunglass and the other half will be clear, so you can turn it around. So what you would do is you would make the sunglass part down to the bottom, you'd expose for the dark stuff in the background, and then it would average out to be a nice picture. Another thing she could do is she could get more light into the dark area. You and I used it when Melissa has these beautiful dragon egg lanterns that we have, and she wanted to take a picture of them. And I said, let me get my reflector. And I got the big 5-in-1 reflector I have and used it to direct light. The eggs were here, the sun was there, and so I put the reflector here, caught the sunlight, and reflected that way. Pictures came out quite nice. So she could have done that. She could have propped it up or had a friend direct the light into the back area there. She could have used a flash, not her on-camera flash. Her on-camera flash wouldn't have done any good, but flashes that come off the camera are called, surprisingly enough, off-camera flashes. Isn't that a clever name? And what happens is the off-camera flash, when you push the shutter, let me do this. Let me take it in this hand. When you push the shutter button, the flash lights up, even though it's not physically attached to the camera. So what I would have done is put the off-camera flash behind the rocks and pointed up to the dark spot, and then taken the picture. The flash would have lit up the dark spot, and the camera would have taken a picture of the foreground. Fill flash, yeah. And as Monty says, sometimes you just can't take a picture of that. And that's what I ended up telling her. All these things I just told you guys, when she asked me the question, I went through all those things in my head. Took me about 5 seconds. And then I realized, you know what? You're a beginner. You can't get this shot. You don't have the knowledge yet of how to manipulate light, how to change light, how to sculpt light in order to capture this image. This is an example of a picture where when you have the knowledge, especially of what you don't know, because we always assume, especially beginners, we assume, well, I've got this expensive camera. I've seen other people take these pictures. I should be able to take this picture. Well, no, because those people are doing other things, whether it's in post-production or with lighting or with whatever it might be, fancier cameras, whatever they're doing. But you think I should be able to do this. So when you gain a little bit of knowledge, you'll realize, oh, okay, this is a lighting situation I can't do anything about. What she might have been able to do is just wait for the light to change so that the cairns were darker, matching the background, and then your camera wouldn't have had such a hard time averaging out the light.
Mm.
So just patience, or shooting from a different angle, physically moving around. But that's part of the problem of being a beginner, is you don't know what you don't know. You don't know that you need to see light and shape light and sculpt light in this way. And you get very, very she was very she spent like a half hour there. And it's the kind of situation where I would have walked up and gone, oh, that's really pretty. Nope, don't have the gear for this, and walked away. And not wasted a half hour trying to get a picture that I knew that she wasn't able to get. If you have any questions about this or anything else we talk about in Starting Point Photography, please send me an email to Sean@startingpointphotography.com. You also go to the website at startingpointphotography.com. By the way, we've got a bunch of, not a bunch, we've got some stuff. They finally got them up on Amazon. The covered KUVRD lens caps that I absolutely love are now up on Amazon. If you go to our website at yourmaclifeshow.com, by the way, the website's up now, so you can go check it out. Sean at yourmaclifeshow.com, you can check out the link on amazon.com. If you buy one of these things, we get a bit of a kickback. So if you're going to get one, we'd appreciate it if you came to our site first and clicked through it. I've got, I think, 4 or 5 of these things that are on all my lenses, except this one. I don't know where the lens. It's right there. It's right there.
Next to the Zap Straps.
I think they're $15 a piece. And definitely,
they're awesome.
Definitely well worth it. So check it out, the KUVRD.com.